Right, welcome back again. Today we're going to do the final drilling and tapping, hopefully, of this pen. In the end where the refill is going to be inserted from, we're going to tap this out to an M8 by 1.25. That's metric 8 millimeters, and the pitch is 1.25. That's pretty standard for an 8 millimeter. You can get a finer and an ultra fine thread of those. That's probably about 1 millimeter and 0.75 for extra fine. The deciding on the drill bit for a metric is very, very simple, I think anyway. So you simply subtract the pitch from the size. So in this case it's 8 millimeter, subtract 1.25 will give you a drill size of 6.75. It couldn't get any more simple than that. If you remember though, we drilled this out to M7, which is obviously a little bit bigger than that, but trust me, for this application, that 0.25 difference, which is, I think it's about 9 thou, is it? Yeah, it's probably about 9 thou, and really that's not a concern of ours. Okay, so that one is ready for tapping. We'll get to the depth and everything on that in a little bit. The section for the cap is a little bit different. We're still going to drill this one out. But I'm not going to show you the drilling of it. You've seen it, drilling can be done. It's quite straightforward. I'm going to be using 3 drills to get that, because it's a slightly bigger one. I'm going to start off obviously with the center drill to find my center, like I did on the previous one. Then I'm going to do a 7 millimeter or a sharp drill that I've got that's thereabouts. Then I'm going to do a 9 millimeter. Then I'm going to do a 9.25 to finish it off. The reason I'm not going straight from the 7 millimeter to the 9.25 is because my 9.25 drill is not a very good quality drill bit. It's a type of drill you'll get from a supermarket, so I don't want it to work very much. So all the work is going to be done by the 9 millimeter, and the 9.25 is really just going to finish it off. If you don't have a 9.25, a number U drill, or letter U drill at least, will work fine for this thread. Here you can see, of course, it's an M10 by 0.75, which is a very fine thread for M10. That's the tap there, and of course you just simply subtract again. M10 subtract 0.75 is 9.25. Couldn't get any easier than that. Okay, I won't show you the drilling of this, but I will show you the tapping of it. Right, we're about to start the tapping for the M8 by 1.25. This is the bolt that's going to screw into the end of the pen, and this is the piece that's going to push the refill so that it just sticks out the other end. Now obviously these measurements need to be reasonably accurate, otherwise your refill is either not going to stick through, or it's going to stick through too far and look really ugly. So we're going to measure the total distance from the edge of that back of that bolt to the tip. Right. For now we're going to measure to the very tip of the refill. We're not going to try and be accurate at the moment and try and decide exactly where it's going to be. So for safety's sake, we're just going to measure to the very end there. As you can see, the pen body is too long with this bolt. Now I could get a longer bolt, or I could just cut this a little bit shorter. I've chosen to cut this a little bit shorter. There's a reason for that, and that is that if I get a longer bolt, it just means I have to tap much deeper to be able to get the refill to stick out the amount I want. I'd have to tap it quite far, and then that would go beyond where the tap's capable of going into a hole. So I'm simply just going to make it simple and just cut that a little bit shorter. I'm going to cut that by 10 millimeters about. Let's have a look. There goes, under the workbench. Okay, that's 120 millimeters. That's about 130. I'm going to chop off 10 millimeters off the end with a big hole in it, and we'll be tapping before you know it. Right, we're ready to do some tapping. And what we've got here, we've got the little tapping guide in here, into the Jacob's chuck. The tapping guide is nothing more than a spring-loaded pin with it's got a fairly sharp point on there. That goes into the back of the tap. Let me see if I can get it up. In the back of the tap there's a little hole in there, and that just aligns with the into that. If your tap doesn't have a little hole in there, it might have a point, and all's not lost. All you do is you just turn that pin around. There's a little grub screw at the back. Take the grub screw out, watch out for the spring doesn't go flying, and take the pin out, turn it around, and you'll see that the other end actually has a little dimple in it, so that you can do it the other way around. But most decent taps have got a little hole there. Okay, just get that back in there. Right, pretty much line this up like we did before. We know that the lathe is not the greatest, so we're just going to use the pen to line it up. So I'm going to line it up approximately where I think center is. It's pretty close over that distance. It's not bad. Let me get this right. Okay, there we go. Right, put that back in again. Let's have a look at our distance that we need. We only need it about there. That can come out. It's about there. We need to be able to get that out. Right, we're going to tighten that up. You need to tighten this up a little bit tighter than you might normally tie, but not so tight, but just a little bit tight. The last thing you want it to do is to twist and turn while it's in the jaws, because the jaws will mark it deeper than you want to sand out afterwards. So if you make it tight now, it won't twist. But we should be all right for this small tap. Okay, let's have a go. Of course, remembering, of course, is that hand tapping on a lathe, the lathe is off. In fact, it's probably better if you unplug it completely. I've also gone and accidentally pressed the on button while I'm doing the tapping, and it's not a pretty sight. Okay, let's get that back in there. You can I showed you the other tap holder. You can use that one if you want. I prefer this one because it takes up less space, and I get a little bit more movement. Okay, that's all pretty much in there. We're going to use plenty of lubricant on here. We don't want it to rip the threads out. We want it to cut them. So we're going to give it every opportunity to do the cutting. Okay, as you can see, the little spring is partially in. I'm going to take it up a little bit more. You don't have to. You can see that little gap's getting smaller. That's just compressing the spring and putting more pressure on there. There we go. That'll do for now. Right, let's just give that some WD-40. Right, here we go. Let's go. If you can't hold the chuck by hand while you're turning this, then just use your chuck key. Let's see how it goes. That'll be fine. As you can see, I'll just work my way backwards and forwards. Like that. Turning the handle back and forth is important, because it breaks the little curls and chips off. You're not making one big continuous long streamer. You want little ones. Little ones are a lot easier to handle. Okay, this is getting a little bit tight. Might have to put the handle in there now. Of course, as you go in, just take up the tension in there. You don't want this to be sloppy, because when you turn that, if it's not fully in, it's just going to bend. As you can see, it's going in pretty easy with the handle on there. No grip required. Break it up. There we go. We're going to take this quite deep. Just edit this out, try and make it short. Just keep going backwards and forwards until it's clear. Okay, right, here we go. Let's tap to the full depth that I'm going to want it. Okay, there we go. all the rubbish out of there, and then I'll show you what we need to do to make it work very well. Right, I've been in and out a few times with the tap to clean those threads out. This is going in there quite nicely now. One thing, I'm not sure if you'll see this on the camera, but if you're familiar with bolts, you know what I mean. Let me just get this out and show you. Where the end of the thread comes up to the head of the bolt, there's a small section there that's actually a slightly wider diameter than the thread itself. So when you screw it in here, it won't go all the way down, so that the body of this here is actually touching the head. There'll be a small little gap between the two, but it's quite easy to get rid of, and I'll show you how we do that. Don't know if you can see there's a tiny little gap there. We can get rid of that quite easily. All we're going to do, it's an 8mm thread, we're just going to, and it's a 10mm diameter shaft, so we're just going to drill a few millimeters into there and remove the first few threads, say about 3 or 4 millimeters, and that will make sure that this bolt will screw all the way down so the head is touching the bottom of that. I'll just draw that out and show you the result when I'm finished.